Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts. It is Wednesday, December 4th.
She always says who we are.
Why?
I was going to go for Leah and Michelle.
I didn't say that?
No, it was really weird. I was like, we're your hosts, Leah and Michelle, and I was going to go, and it was like,
But I already know who we are.
Okay.
That's why I skipped it today. Sometimes I question it. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today's the 4th of December, 2019. We are bringing you a couple of episodes tonight. We'll separate them. But the first one that we want to talk about is vital, and we don't talk about this very much.
You're wearing this shirt.
I thought the same thing.
Stand.
Just stand. And then there's got the little
But it could mean a lot of things. Just stand, not just for the anthem, but stand up for what's right. This week did not get a lot of attention this year, or this week. We have Dr. Shiva, who I love. Irundaya. I don't know how to say it. Irundaya. Iduraya. Thanks. I love him. He's running against Pocahontas in Massachusetts for her Senate seat. He did run against her for this.
He's such a powerful...
Is he running? Did he run? She's up this year. I think he's running this year. I'm not sure. Anyway,
but she's not running while she's running for president. I can't remember. You can't do that, right?
Well, he wants her seat.
But you can't run.
He ran this year. I think he ran this year.
But did
she won?
Okay.
Yeah.
He'll probably run again though.
I hope
because her seat will be up because she's not.
Well,
no, because she might run again.
Like
she's
6
not.
years.
Yeah, you're right.
But there's another seat. Maybe I think there's 2 seats in Massachusetts. I don't know if he's going to run for that one or not. Anyways, so he is an outspoken advocate for
vaccine choice,
health food, against GMOs. He is more of a libertarian, but I wouldn't classify him as like a conservative, because he's on the side of health. And a lot of it's a very interesting world that you have out there with like liberals, left-leaning people who are against GMOs and, have done research on vaccines and things like that. So this week there is public hearings for the Massachusetts Joint Committee on Public Health is holding a hearing this week. And yesterday, it was this morning. Well, I guess it was this morning. Dr. Shiva was this morning or last night. I'm trying to get my day straight. Anyways, this week, Dr. Shiva and concerned parents, who are concerned about these new bills that have been proposed, who pretty much trample against GMOs and have done research on vaccines. The 2 bills that this is from Weston A. Price. I highly recommend the Weston A. Price Foundation. They are where we have gotten a lot of information on raw milk. We've had Weston A. Price representatives at our raw milk farms, dairies. Yeah. To talk about nutritious food, what actually is nutrition, and it's mostly not what you buy at the grocery store. And anyways, so H3999 eliminates the current statutory protections for religious exemptions to vaccines. It's a simple bill that strikes out a single paragraph of Section 15 of Chapter 76 of the existing general laws, but that paragraph is the religious belief exemption to vaccinations in the state of Massachusetts. H4096 and S2359 are much more complicated bills that threaten vaccine exemptions in multiple ways.
Wow.
While still providing for medical and religious exemptions, the bills, my head itches now, would require the doctor or family claiming the exemption to submit an approved form. The bills severely limit people's ability to claim the exemptions in several ways. The form for religious exemptions would require the individual to agree with the following statements. Number 1, the participant or responsible adult has a sincere religious belief prohibiting vaccination. Number 2, refusing to vaccinate the participant may result in serious illness or death of the participant, in most cases, the child. 3, refusing to immunize the participant is against public policy and may result in serious illness or death to others. You would have to sign it. You would have to sign that refusing to vaccinate your child may result in serious illness or death of your child. You really are going to sign that. And refusing to immunize is against public policy and may result in serious illness or death of others. This is way broad. This goes against
what's the word
the
when
conscience,
you,
right?
Not perjure yourself, but when you
And this would be perjury if you did. You know what I mean? Like
no, there's a word for it. You're like, oh, you guys help me in the chat. There's a word for it when you actually self-incriminate or whatever.
In other words, in order to have their religious beliefs respected, parents would have to sign a form effectively making themselves liable.
Exactly.
If someone else, you have to say, I know that my child could probably get sick or die, and it will be my fault. I know that my child could kill another child. Basically saying, I'm going to let my kid who's 4 or 5 drive a car.
I guess maybe it's just called liable. Like, you just make yourself liable. I guess that was really...
If someone else gets sick and tries to claim that it was because their child wasn't vaccinated, you could, like, sue them or something. Like, this is going crazy far. Yet the doctors and vaccine manufacturers remain immune from any liability for their side effects, injuries, and deaths.
Hang on, pause right there.
Caused by vaccines that they make it administer.
We haven't talked about this very much, but I'm going to reiterate it real fast because I know you're on a roll. When the vaccine companies, there's this thing called a vaccine court. If your child suffers an adverse reaction to a vaccine, they can go to vaccine court. They can get a big payout. You know who pays that payout? U.S. citizens.
The government.
U.S. citizens. Never, ever, ever is it the vaccine company. And so they're now saying that parents have to be liable if their child is not vaccinated and somebody then comes and says, you know, my kid got sick from your kid, or who knows, the state might step in and say you killed your child, and then they could go to jail for murder.
Yeah.
Okay? And yet, the vaccine companies go off scot-free all the time, and we foot the bill because they have no liability at all.
Yeah, exactly.
The standards are not anywhere the same.
Get this, though. These two bills, H4096 and S2359, also allows minors to consent to vaccination if the medical provider believes that it is in the minor's best interest, and the medical provider is not liable for any kind of civil damages for such a decision, even if the child suffers a severe adverse reaction to the vaccine. So, in all the state of Massachusetts, they can have medical doctors go into the schools and say, do you want to be vaccinated? You could die. You could kill other kids. Well, my mom doesn't want me vaccinated. Well, guess what? We're going to vaccinate you. You take your kid to the doctor. Doctor says, do you want to be vaccinated? The kid, 5 years old. Sure, I want to be vaccinated because you know vaccines will help save your life. The parent says no. The medical doctor says, your kid says he wants to be vaccinated.
And yet there's no culpability for them if the child suffers an adverse reaction to, that's written in the bill. Mm-hmm. But... there's no, can you imagine writing that in the bill? The parent's culpable for this, but the doctors and no one else will be culpable.
So I'm going to go through some of these talking points. And talking points aren't bad because sometimes they do just kind of go over some facts. Here's some facts. The U.S. Supreme Court recognizes vaccines to be unavoidably unsafe and to cause injury and death in some recipients. The government has paid out approximately $4 billion. And to get those payouts, you got to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. You got to have because they don't pay out.
Right.
They really don't pay out very much. Hundreds of thousands have reported an adverse reaction to vaccines, to the vaccine safety monitoring. So you can check on that link there. Maybe Michelle can put this Weston A. Price, it's in my Twitter feed, into the description. Weston A. Price, vaccine exemptions under attack in Massachusetts. No one has done a study to identify how many of the injuries deaths connected to vaccines have occurred in individuals who did not have generally accepted contraindications. I don't ever have to say that word right. The list of contraindications does not cover family history of adverse vaccine reactions, autoimmune disease, or many other factors that would logically be connected. And it may not be in my Twitter feed. Maybe I need it to be in my Twitter. No, it's not that far. Okay. You can just do Weston A. Price vaccines, Massachusetts. Many other factors that would logically be connected to an increased risk of adverse reactions. Vaccine makers and the healthcare providers who administer them bear zero liability for vaccine injuries and deaths. They gain all profit from vaccines and no risk, which means they have no incentive to ensure that the benefits of any given vaccine truly outweigh the risks. The Massachusetts vaccination rate is currently at 96.1% for the 7 vaccines surveyed by the CDC. The existing exemptions are not a threat to public health. Physicians in the American Medical Association Code of Ethics affirm philosophical and religious exemptions for themselves, parents should have the same right. Unvaccinated individuals do not threaten others' health any more than vaccinated individuals. Scientific evidence demonstrates that individuals vaccinated with live viruses such as the MMR, the measles, mumps, and rubella, the rotavirus, the chickenpox, the shingles, and the influenza can shed the virus for many weeks or months afterwards. Yet parents who vaccinate their children are required to sign a form stating that they understand that their child could cause illness to others.
Wow.
They don't sign forms. They just pop you right in. All right. So, Michelle, if you would start with the video. This is a man who is he's a garbage worker. And he's got a little tattoo on his neck. And he's got a thick Massachusetts accent. Sounds straight from Boston. But he does not vaccinate his daughter. And he homeschools his daughter. And he says at the end, he will not comply with this. So you want to play it?
Yes, we want to play it.
Started from scratch there.
Boston cage. I've been a sanitation worker, a garbage man for nearly 15 years. During that time, I woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning every day and worked 10 hours a day, proudly serving the citizens of Massachusetts. Garbage men have the 5th most dangerous job in the country. I did my job with honor and pride, never missed a day of work. I felt what I was doing was a public service. Through my own research, I chose not to vaccinate my young daughter and homeschool her. That was my choice, and I'm glad I did that. She is a healthy, vibrant, and is at least 2 years ahead of her peers, I'm told by experts. As someone who has served this Commonwealth, I find it incredible that this hearing is even taking place. These bills are even before us, and that you folks have even entertained them. You should be ashamed. What I see is total hypocrisy and not focusing on the real issues. Let me give you my personal perspective. Bill Gates was my employer in my job. He owned and still owns 33% of Republic Services, the garbage company I used to work for. That garbage company does not offer workers decent health benefits and has cut their wages. Workers are still on strike and have been on strike for nearly 6 months. While Bill Gates is out there putting toilets in far-off countries, supporting filthy companies like Monsanto, promoting pesticides and GMO seeds all over the world, while promoting public health right here in Massachusetts, while his company made $10 billion in revenue, $1 billion in profits, of which he himself made $100 million in personal wealth in 1 year. Public health workers, which is what garbage men and sanitation workers are, do not get a fair wage and proper health care. Right now in Massachusetts, rat infestations are exploding. Rats carry over 40 major infectious diseases. If you truly cared about community immunity, you would be addressing the big infrastructure issues, the mistreatment of public health workers, but you are not. You are addressing a small, minuscule population who seek exemptions, not because you care about community immunity, because you want to show that you, the state, can control working people like me. Do not have choice. I will not allow it. Regardless of what you decide to do, I'm not holding my breath and will be educating thousands of my brothers, sanitation workers, of what you are up to, educating them on the truth of vaccines, and will help create a groundswell that will end this attack on freedom. And if this bill does pass, I will not comply myself.
Wow, that's so powerful.
That's powerful. I'm trying to see what you found is that anything against vaccines has been almost completely scrubbed.
I was actually
from the
scared
internet.
of putting any of this in my description, or not my description, but the description and the tags, because I'm like, they will find some reason to take this video down.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. If you haven't seen the movie Vaxxed, you need to see it, because in it you can dispute the scientists' claims, but you cannot dispute the parents' stories.
Exactly.
You cannot dispute the parents' stories that say, my kid was vaccinated. In the doctor's room, they started to have a seizure right after they had a vaccination. Anyone else would say, oh, my kid ate a shrimp and started to react. Oh, no, it wasn't the shrimp. Every doctor would say, yeah. You go to the doctor and you say, I did this and then this happened. And the doctor's like, oh, yeah. But when it comes to vaccines, oh, something else happened. Most, in my opinion, of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, are caused right after a child has had vaccines that day. Kids who are perfectly normal, happy and smiley, within a week or two, suddenly become autistic for the rest of their lives right after being vaccinated. I'm going to see if this is the trailer. I'm not getting any volume.
Just go over here.
Anyways, that's not the trailer.
Right.
So go ahead and play. That's like in a different language. So go ahead and play Shiva's. Dr. Shiva is on the front line. I love this man. Go ahead and play his first testimony there. That's vaxxed in German.
All right. Part 1.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is
Make him
Dr.
big.
Shiva. I'm a scientist. I hold
if I do,
4
then I
degrees
can't
from
pull up the chat.
MIT,
Make it big.
including my PhD
It's
in
fine
biological
like this.
engineering.
Let me show you.
And I'm the chairman and CEO and chief
But I-
science officer of Cytosol.
but I don't like all the other stuff on the
biotech
side.
company in Cambridge. I've spent 40 years in scientific research since 1978, starting in Sutherland-Fedett syndrome. And I'm recognized globally as a leader in personalized
I'll put the
precision
chat on my
medicine.
phone so I can
I've been
still see you guys.
researching the immune system for over 20 years and have published in major peer-reviewed journals. And I also work with Big Pharma and the FDA, so you can't bucket me. When it comes to vaccines, the science is not settled at all. In a distinguished lecture I was invited to that Ms. Bennett just referred to deliver 2 weeks ago at the National Science Foundation, I shared a modern understanding of the immune system. That talk shared that the immune system is composed of 6 major interacting, interconnected systems, not the simple, dumb, 2-box old model of the innate and adaptive immune system that goes back to 1950 and 1950s, which is still the basis of vaccine development. Measuring immune health or the efficacy of vaccines based on the single variable of antibody count is outdated as best. Not one person at that NSF lecture either had an issue with this conclusion or issue that it is unscientific to ignore the specific genetic and epigenetic factors of the individual when delivering a cocktail of untested vaccines. Second, prescribing standardized one-size-fits-all vaccine schedule across the board and legislating the removal of exemptions, religious, medical, or otherwise, is anti-science, anti-freedom, and anti-health. You guys all better get that. Modern systems biology reveals this is a science that one size doesn't fit all. That is why biotech and even big pharma companies right here in Kendall Square are rapidly moving towards a precision and personalized medicine. Right medicine for the right person at the right time. Third, there's a complete and total lack of risk assessment when it comes to vaccines. Vaccines are a product of engineering, biological engineering. Pharmaceutical and medical devices are a product of an engineering process and have strict processes and guidelines. Vaccines have evaded that stringent process of risk assessment.
Okay, then you can go and play part 2 there. If you see the people going like this, if they make too much noise, then they get kicked out. So they have to, this is how they're clapping. I mean, I know it's like the whole social justice way, but it also is a way to get people so they don't get kicked out.
Right.
Not one person at that NSF lecture either had an issue with this conclusion or issue that it is unscientific to ignore the specific genetic and epigenetic factors of the individual when delivering a cocktail of untested vaccines. Second, prescribing standardized one-size-fits-all vaccine schedule across the board and legislating the removal of exemptions, religious, medical, or otherwise, is anti-science, anti-freedom, and anti-health. You guys all better get that. Modern systems biology reveals this is a science that one size doesn't fit all. That is why biotech and even big pharma companies right here in Kendall Square are rapidly moving towards a precision and personalized medicine. Right medicine for the right person at the right time. Third, there's a complete and total lack of risk assessment when it comes to vaccines. Vaccines are a product of engineering, biological engineering. Pharmaceutical and medical devices are a product of an engineering process and have strict processes and guidelines. Vaccines have evaded that stringent process of risk assessment. In fact, of the 30 recommended vaccines for children, none of them have had double-blind, saline, placebo-controlled studies, even the one with Gardasil was completely fraudulent. Fourth, vaccination is an experiment. In fact, vaccines based on the same folks who promote herd immunity are now forced to acknowledge vaccines such as MMR are failing to meet their own standards of success. Fifth, the social justice argument of herd immunity of forcing 95% of us to be immunized to protect a minority of immunosuppression with disregard for the collateral damage of the spectrum of simple or more extreme injury caused to those who do get vaccinated. Finally, Real science demonstrates community immunity came from clean water, nutrition, sanitation. Those infrastructure gains were a result of mass movements of American workers. Those public health changes resulted in real gains, at least 100 times more than all vaccines combined. If you want true access, if you want truly to address health and community, let's clean up our crumbling infrastructure in Massachusetts, the third worst in the nation. Period.
We must attend to our infrastructure. Any questions for the panel?
Okay, so let me play. I'm going to go over that, but he said a lot in those sentences. So the first thing that I want to point out is that these are bioengineered vaccines. They don't occur naturally. This is not a natural thing that we're talking about here. To say that for thousands of years, people could not have survived without vaccines is insane. And to say that you have to have a vaccine, you have to put these bioengineered in a lab into your body, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing the adverse effects, not knowing the risk and assessment.
And it also
the
devalues
vaccines.
the individual.
Yes.
It says you don't have individual rights because they know that regardless of the vaccines being safe in and of themselves, peanuts are safe for most people.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
But would you force every single child to eat peanuts?
Right.
Okay? No. Some kids are going to have just reactions to certain things that they just randomly have reactions to.
There has never been a double-blinded test on vaccines, meaning you watch and follow a child who wasn't vaccinated and you follow a child who was vaccinated.
Right.
They've never tested it. They only test them in labs, and then they put them in kids. And remember, the first polio vaccines were giving kids polio.
Right.
Okay? So I get a little upset about it because right now I think there's like 30 on the list of vaccines. We are the most vaccinated country in America. And are we vaccinating for health?
No.
Or are we vaccinating for the biopharmaceutical companies?
Yes.
Okay, who are making billions of dollars, because if you can get something on the market that everybody has to have, you're going to always put a penny in your pocket.
And what kind of country do we live in when every single human being has to have
a
something synthetic
product
put inside of their body?
Exactly.
I would get it if it was some sort of like end of the world scenario.
Exactly.
Right? Where like zombies.
Right.
You need the zombie vaccination because listen, we can't have zombies.
Right.
All right? Where I mean, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, like
here.
kids going around biting people and killing people to stop people from killing.
Yes.
Right? Okay, we've always had measles. I'm sorry. It's something to deal with.
Yeah.
We've always had chicken pox. I'm sorry. It's something to deal with.
Right.
Okay? There are things that we have to deal with because we live a life.
Right.
And when you compare the numbers of kids who have adverse reactions and deaths due to those who have been saved, you're like balanced out.
Well, and you get the people that say vaccines don't cause autism. Whatever your argument is, to me, science is proof. And when we listen to the stories of the people on the movie Vaxxed, and we have personal friends who have kids who got autism right after vaccines.
I think that calling it autism, why can't we just say they got a permanent lifelong disability?
So why don't we have a vaccination against autism, and that vaccination is you don't have to get a vaccine?
Yeah, and if there is...
Why don't we care about the kids having autism?
Okay, you're right. That's a really good question. How come there's no vaccine against autism? You know
There
what I mean?
is. It's called not getting the vaccine.
We have a family friend of ours who has twins. Took the twins in to get vaccinated, and one of the twins stopped breathing. She had to call 911. The Life Squad had to bring that child back to life, and the child has had issues ever since. Come on. These are things like, this is an adverse, almost died. This vaccine almost killed her son.
But Leah, it's not a result of vaccines. And even if they admit that it's a result from vaccines, they'll say, well, you know what? Your child doesn't matter because the herd. And that's what I'm saying. They take away the value of the individual, and it's all about the collective. Even if they were 100% right, which they are not, about herd immunity and all this, that, and the other. You never ever say, I'm going to shoot this kid to save that kid.
To say that God would not give us these vaccinations when he created us,
right,
is absolutely insane. And that one day, 8,000 years after creation, finally somebody would get it so that everybody was healthy. Well, look around. Everybody is not healthy. These vaccines are not making people healthier. Go and play the third video. The third video is where people are getting heated. And the one representative, his name is in the third video.
This is it. I told you
scroll
to
up.
bring it up.
Scroll up. I'm just reading it. Hang on.
Okay.
Unstable, corrupt Joe Confront calls out the cops to silence moms, and Representative John Mahoney calls Shiva Ayandaya an effing P word. They're at the thing, and I'm going to play it. There's going to be an F-bomb, and I'm going to play this because this is not something that should happen at a government hearing. So
I'm not going to make this any bigger because it's totally big by itself.
From the beginning.
No, we have 90 more people who would like to tell their story. So while you lob insults at me, I am actually trying to make sure your voices are heard today. So I reject and will not tolerate this kind of insult throwing any longer.
Will you insult me?
No, stop.
He said,
If you continue to behave like this, I will ask you to be removed. I believe this is democracy. This is democracy.
Oh my God! Did you hear what he just said?
What did he say?
Did you hear it?
What did he say?
Did you hear?
okay, so you missed it right here. Everybody was talking. This guy right here calls him a...
What did he say? Did you hear it?
What did he say?
Did you hear him call him fucking prick?
Wow.
Remove Mahoney!
Officers, I would like these people to remain sit.
Throw the only dark skinned guy out.
I am doing my best to make sure that all these mothers and other people here, some of which are my constituents, have a voice. I see people nodding. You do not have complete autonomy to take up people's time. I am not going to allow it. This is a democratic process. Every single bill filed in this legislature gets a hearing like this. All of us have done our homework so that we can approach these bills with dignity and the kind of tenacity that you need us to. So if you continue to lob insults past this moment, I will have you removed. Right now, I would like you to say, this is democracy. In the Commonwealth, we afford every single bill this right. And I want people to speak. This is just the beginning of a very large remaining pile. And people have driven from across the Commonwealth to have their voices heard. And I want to hear them. That is enough. Henry Thomas, please.
So it got a little heated there.
So actually, I was kind of confused. Whose side was she on?
She was yelling at the people in the audience. She was yelling at Dr. Shiva. She was yelling at
that's
the
what I thought.
moms and the
But
parents.
how can she say, I want to hear them when she's shutting them up?
Because they would yell a couple things like they were disrespecting Shiva. Shiva was the first one to sign up, but he had to wait 5.5 hours to be heard because they gave a back door to the companies to give their spiels first, and so most people had kind of left the building by the time a lot of people had left by the time Shiva got up. But he was the first one person to sign up to be heard.
Wow.
And the way that this meeting was held, he had all these pro-vaccine people first until Dr. Shiva gets up. So the moms are upset, the parents are upset that their voice was kind of heard towards the end, and then they were disrespecting Dr. Shiva, and it's a very tense, it's an emotional thing because these people are getting ready to basically take your child away, put your life on the line, and I'm heated just. watching them. I'm heated defending them. I'm not a parent in Massachusetts, but my blood pressure is getting high. I'm ready to yell at somebody. There's a room full of people and they're just ready to like burst, and they're not allowed to say anything. So you got to sign up. You got to be like, do it in order and stuff like that. And you can just tell that it's not going the way it's supposed to. And it's just, it's infuriating. Yeah. It's infuriating. And then you have that one representative, I don't know if you probably didn't hear it, but he looked at Dr. Shiva and said, "You're an effing PRICK." Okay? And then everybody in the room was like, "Hey," but she didn't look at her colleague and say, "That's unprofessional. You need to leave the room." He just sat there smug as a bug on a rug, like, "I can do this because I have power." Yeah. And I'm a little heated. I'm going to go ahead and play. We're going to get to like kind of a happy side. We got to bring our blood pressure down a little bit. But I'm going to play this. This is Vaxxed 2. And I don't think I've actually seen the... No, that's not what I wanted. This trailer, so we're going to watch it. We're going to watch it together.
I can tell you today, having been in clinical practice for over 30 years, that the children I see today are sicker than they were when I was a resident.
Actor Robert De Niro has reversed course in a highly controversial documentary film. His prestigious Tribeca Film Festival will no longer feature a film called Vaxxed.
They'd never confronted anything like this before. They'd never had to deal with a film like this, and they censored it. And the censorship caused it to explode.
De Niro initially defended the decision to screen the film at Tribeca.
But after mounting pressure over the weekend, the decision was made to cancel the screening.
Getting a bus of some kind to travel on the ground, to be with the people, was the way to go forward. What we found out very quickly was that parents wanted to tell their story. There was lines of people. All they wanted to do was talk about the injury that happened to them.
All he wanted to do was go in his room and sit on his bed and bang his head against the wall.
When we set out on the road to record stories, we were in for much more than we bargained for. We were about to have an education that you just couldn't buy. This is just the biggest lie ever told.
Nobody in their right mind would ever take this vaccine if they actually read the clinical literature.
This has actually been proven that these vaccines cause cardiovascular instability in these infants.
It causes death, and they admit it. Those injured families, you have to appreciate what you've done. Sharing your stories online, sharing your stories on the Vax bus has grown a movement.
After his 12-month vaccines, he lost eye contact. Like an idiot, I went back for his 15-month vaccines, and he completely stopped talking.
He couldn't crawl anymore, or talk anymore. He couldn't eat anymore, he couldn't swallow. Screaming, and you could tell they were in so much pain. Now he has seizures. He's almost died on me several times.
It was the people's story. Their story is the same over and over and over again.
And it is their stories that don't get to be told, because they say if you tell these stories, people will be scared.
Right.
Okay? And it's the same story over and over again. My kid was healthy. I took him in for the vaccines and they weren't. Now, if kids are born with a disability, everybody knows that. But a healthy 2-year-old doesn't go into a doctor's office and come out not having eye contact with his mama anymore. A 3-year-old doesn't go into a doctor and come out not being able to speak anymore. Okay? Kids are either born with a disability or they're not disabled. Something happens to them that makes them disabled. If you are talking, see, autism used to be that you would wonder, you would see, are they talking at 2? Are they talking at 3? Then we might need to investigate that they have a disability. Mm-hmm. Okay? Right. Are they not talking? A nonverbal child at 2 and 3 who has never spoken, you could say they were born that way. That was hereditary. But children, and I'm not a doctor, but I grew up with kids. I have never in my entire life seen a talking, walking, eye contacting 2 and 3-year-old normal kid overnight turn into a disabled child. That does not happen. Something happens to trigger it. Mercury in the brain. our brains are what cause us to be able to make eye contact.
Right.
Our brains are what tell us how to take thoughts from our minds to the speech. And what they don't tell you is that they call them the co-rations or the whatever the substance that takes the vaccine into the body.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the vaccine.
Right.
It's the carrier.
Right.
It's mercury. Mercury levels that they tell you are dangerous for pregnant women in general.
You're not even supposed to eat fish.
They put that same amount of mercury into an infant. So why are they worried about women eating fish when they're putting way more mercury into an infant child?
And what happens to the mercury when it goes into the child's body?
And then
to the brain, it gets
we
stuck
know
and
things.
lodged there.
If you have, it's like a blood clot in the brain, but it's not blood and it can't be dissolved because it's metal. It can't be dissolved because it's metal. It gets stuck in the circuits of the brain. We know what happens, you guys. We're not stupid. Benjamin Franklin puts his kite up in the sky and it gets hit with an electrical lightning. It gets hit with lightning, you got electricity. We have literal electrical synapses in our brains. Something happens to some of these children, not all of them. It's like the lottery.
But
when
a lot more kids win this lottery.
Right,
or lose
but
it.
when that metal gets into their brain, if there's a synapse that happens at the right time, at the right place, that metal, bam.
Well, and then it's more than that too.
And it shorts out the circuits for speech, and it shorts out the circuits for eye contact, and it shorts out for mobility. Kids, see, I've seen kids who were born with disabled arms and legs. Mm-hmm. I've never seen a 2 and 3-year-old running around, waking up the next day, can't run around no more.
So it's also poor medical practice as well. It's what is it like when you join a club and you have to obey its rules no matter what, like a pact or whatever?
A gang.
These gang rules that say if your child has been vaccinated and has an adverse reaction, mm-hmm. you take the child in and you say, my child had this reaction because of the vaccine. They will tell you, no, that's not what it was. They were just already sick. Let me pump your child full of antibiotics. Mm-hmm. It's the strong desire to deny. Now, if they had just treated the child, mm-hmm. they might be able to reverse the effects of the vaccine. But because they have to deny it, they do one of the most medically unnecessary and possibly damaging things for children. A lot of kids have autism because they were pumped full of antibiotics when they were a child, ruined their gut bacteria system, and you have no idea how much the gut is tied to the brain, which is tied to autism. So if
we
they
don't
were
even have to
honest
say, let's
about
not
it,
say autism. Let's
okay,
just say
brain damage. That's
brain
what somebody
damage.
had said.
Let's just say brain damage or physical damage.
Physical damage. Okay, so what's happening is, if you walk in there and they just say, okay, your child might be one of the ones that had an adverse reaction. Let's go ahead and treat it properly. Not with antibiotics, because antibiotics isn't going to fix it. Antibiotics is going to make it worse.
Right.
Okay? And so that's one of my bigger beefs than just the vaccines themselves. It's the staunch requirement for all doctors to deny that there is no possibility ever that your child had an adverse reaction due to the vaccine that they had the day before. I've never met anybody who walked into an office and told the doctor, my kid had this reaction and I had a vaccine yesterday, and the doctor says, oh, okay, that was the vaccine. Let's treat it. So never, ever do that.
I want to show you right here. If you Google adverse vaccine reaction, I guarantee you 2 or 3 years ago, you'd get adverse vaccine reactions.
Right.
Now, you're going to get what the government wants you to see.
Yep.
And that's part of the cover-up. Mayo Clinic, UCLA. You got the Centers of Disease Control addressing vaccine side effects. Look, 1,200 views. 1,200 views, because nobody's looking at that because we know the CD is lying to us. Again, the CDC overview of theirs, 17,000 views in 7 years. Okay, come on. John Hopkins, why parents really choose to refuse, and it's the risks of delaying childhood vaccines. 4.5.
That looks like a news
4,000,
anyway.
4,500 views.
It's a news anchor. It says reporting. Like, what does she know?
I know. ABC. And then, can children really have an adverse reaction? And you're not going to get the kids who are literally having the vaccine reactions. You have to look, and they'll tell you, you'll have to go probably lots of pages down to get any
well, and again, you mentioned this at the start of the
reactions.
Video, but we have friends of ours that, well, more or less acquaintances, but they used to be friends, two brothers in the medical profession, and they will tell you, they're conservative through and through, and they will tell you up and down that anti-vaxxers are stupid, they're insane, but they're also in the medical profession, and they are brainwashed into thinking that the medical profession knows best, that anybody that is against vaccine is like a flat earther, okay? When we aren't the ones that are climate deniers here. We're the ones that are going, no, look at the stories, look at the facts. Right. I think that these people that are so pro-vaccine have never even watched the movie Vaxxed. They've never even seen the stories of these people who have lived this. So
one of the best places to do is just go to Vax TV, and then you can watch some of the videos, some of the stories, and then you can hear, a lot of what happens. The medical community, and we've talked about this, will come. They will take your child from you. It's horrible. It's horrible. Somebody has fully recovered from autism through diet. I know a lot of people. That's
the gut bacteria angle. Not every kid that has. You didn't want me to call it autism, but what I will. Autism can't be recovered because a lot of it is diet and gut bacteria and things like that. Dr. Axe, Dr. Josh Axe, just Google him and you can get some answers.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna move on to just a little good news. My paper is a paper here.
I don't know. Is it upstairs?
No, it was right. It's my Amish paper that I just brought down.
Sorry, I just yawned on air.
No, I brought it down, and it was like right here. I was going to read it, and
let me go looking.
I had my paper.
No, that's a song.
No, weird. Is it on this chair? No. My Amish farmer had sent me he sends me a letter, and every month when I go to pay, my paper, and this month's little paper was on, I really wanted to read it for you guys. It was on being healthy to the planet and how we can, I want to close the Bing tabs. How do Bings, I don't even know why that Bing tab, yes, close all. You didn't find it, huh?
No.
Is that that book?
No, I checked the book. Did you put this down on this?
No. Huh. It was like right here. Like I brought it down with my computer. So I put it here. Didn't put it here. Sorry, guys. I was really excited to show you my little. Read it for you.
Well, keep talking. I'll look for it.
No, you're not going to find it.
I will keep looking. It's got to exist somewhere. Unless it fell down.
I'm sure it fell down. It fell down underneath there. Underneath here.
Could be there, but I can't reach it. Something.
I just wanted to read it. Now I'm frustrated.
I have something. Here, wait. Let's see if this is it. Nope, that's not even it.
That's funny. Happy birthday, Mom.
Could be back there, but it must
there
be
were
stuck
so
in
many.
the
There
book.
were so many facts in there. Like I can't even bring it up. Like it was like a bunch of facts on like how many bison roamed the earth at one time.
You don't have anything else you can tell me?
No, like it was all facts that I don't have in my head. That's why I brought the paper
you don't
down.
Have anything else to talk about?
I know. I have another show I'm gonna do, but
Let me just double check.
I'm gonna find the paper when I'm done. The point of the paper, which I don't have all the facts for because I'm not super smart to remember everything that I read exactly, was this author had talked about how we can begin to heal the planet. Huh?
Did you put it in your pocket?
I don't have any pockets. I literally have no pockets. I literally have not one pocket. We can begin to heal the planet And we don't have to be... The environmentalists go out there and say, what can we do to be less abusive to the planet? I don't know. Is it under like the lighting system right there?
No.
Okay. Is it under my chair?
Did you go upstairs? Is it under my chair? Did you go upstairs at all?
No, I didn't. It's okay. I'll just have to try to find it some other time. It was going to be awesome. I was going to do this whole story on this. It was right here. I bet it fell behind there.
I just moved the whole cabinet forward.
Okay. The environmental community focuses on electric cars, LED light bulbs, how we can hurt the planet a little bit less. And so every day you wake up, you feel guilty because you're just trying to be less harmful. Like, they want you to feel guilty for existing. When one of the major environmentalist slogans is leave no trace and take none, like don't pick flowers. When you're in the wilderness, don't touch it, don't disturb it. I want to leave this planet better. And we can leave this planet better. Instead of focusing on how to be less harmful to the planet, instead of taking these monoculture farms as the norm is not raping the land and planting a bunch of corn and soybeans. Michelle, you can stop looking.
I can't, now it bugs me.
I know. The answer is to bring health to the land. It's now kind of just distracting, Michelle. So just,
sorry.
It's okay. It's like, it's just, I'm going to roll with it. Just what's in my head. Because it's all in my head anyways, just not all the facts. There was like 80 million bison here at one time, and now there's like 50 million cows. At one point, the earth regenerated itself. They didn't need to the grass didn't need to irrigate because roots went down feet. The prairie grasses, the roots weren't like this. They went down feet. Imagine that, into the ground. Feet. Grass roots that go down feet to get nutrients and water. We're not, and we do not need to be, a detriment to the planet. We can. When you go outside, nature will tell you what it needs.
Right.
From you and I. Okay? Nature will tell you what it needs. If you see a landscape where there's not enough trees, nature's telling you plant some trees.
It didn't have pictures of like grass and fields on it, did it?
No pictures.
Okay, because I found one from last week. I want to make sure it wasn't the wrong.
Last
month, I mean.
Oh. It might have been a good one, but I didn't. This is why, Nigel Farage is like, there's really nothing. He said, I don't really do anything to offset my
carbon pollution.
But I got a plan.
Mm.
I think we should plant some trees. And you know what? He's on the right track. It's not about being less of a detriment, which is true. You can work on being less of a detriment.
Mm.
If, you're hitting somebody, you could hit them less, or you could stop hitting them, and then you could start loving them, and you could start hugging them, and you could start nourishing them.
Exactly. That's a really good point.
Instead. And horses, guess what, guys? Horses are actually good for the planet.
Mm.
Cows are good for the planet when done right.
Right.
Chickens and animals are good for the planet when done right. Okay? And when you look at like ever-bearing trees and animals that rotate on grass, perennial-wise, we need to focus less on planting annual crops and more on those that can survive on perennials and that are perennials. Nut trees.
Yeah.
Fruit trees. Berries. This country alone produced more food, literally more food, before we came with industrialization than what we can do right now with all of our farm machinery. It used to be that everybody had a fruit trees and nut trees because they knew.
Right.
They just knew, hey, they are food and they produce it. Why don't whole subdivisions plant fruits and nut trees instead of these god-awful landscaping trees. And that all the food comes from these monoculture farms driven by tractors.
Right.
That is harming the planet. And instead of focusing on trying to be less harmful, plant your own something, anything. If you plant one tomato plant, you have helped the planet. You've helped bugs. You've helped bees, pollinators. You've helped something. You have given life to something. You've birthed life to the planet, and the planet thanks you for it. Plant more things and more things and more things. Plant the perennial things. Let your grass grow. You don't need to cut all your grass. Let some of it be a wildflower sanctuary for wildlife.
Or put some sheep on it.
You know? So anyways, that's the point of that article. I want to sign off here because I need to talk to you guys about the
impeachment
real quick. So like, comment, subscribe to Mass Face Feeding Resistance Chicks. Share this video.
If you can.
And we have a P.O. Box 107 45150, Milford, Ohio. And come back in just a second.
All right, we'll be back, guys. We love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember,
it's not just conspiracy theory if they're trying to kill us through vaccines.
Yeah, I think it was Baker Mom that said, I think that vaccines are just a way to try to cull the herd.
They're calling the herd.
I think you're right.
I was cold all alone. No place for home every day. So afraid. But you called my name.